Hello, my name is Amy Bolger, and my presentation is on addressing suicide in law enforcement, investigating trends, case studies, and solutions. So I'm going to start off with my introduction. Law enforcement officers face unique stressors, exposure to violence, trauma, long hours, and organizational pressures. Unfortunately, these stressors contribute to elevated suicide risk. In fact, suicide among officers surpass line-of-duty deaths. That makes this issue urgent because we have to protect those who protect us. A few statistics that are important to understand the severity of this issue. Around 40 officers die by suicide annually in the U.S. Officers are also 1.5 times more likely to die by suicide than in the line of duty. The rate of suicide in law enforcement is 17 to 18.7 per 100,000 compared to the 14 per 100,000 in the general population, so it's slightly elevated. PTSD affects between 15 and 30% of officers, yet fewer than 10 to 20% actually seek any help. So next we're going to start with a case study or an example of an act that has worked. That act being New York's Lieutenant Joseph Banish Mental Health Act. This law created a confidential peer-to-peer counseling network for officers as it was a response to multiple suicides, particularly in Long Island, which made up over half of New York's suicide cases. This peer model is powerful because it encourages help seeking without fear of career repercussions since it's confidential. Another case study we're going to look at is the post-January 6th impact. So officers involved in the January 6th Capitol attack, there were 4 officers who committed suicide due to their trauma from living this event, namely 2, Officer Jeffrey Smith and Officer Howard Liebengood. Both were classified as line-of-duty deaths, however their suicides were shortly after the event, not during. These cases highlight the psychological toll of critical incidents and the importance of support after trauma. So some key challenges that this issue has, despite progress, is stigma. The tough guy mentality throughout officers still reigns supreme above that of feeling comfortable to seek or ask for help. Access gaps. So smaller or rural departments often lack any resources to properly have mental health accommodations. The underuse of services. So in departments where these services exist at all, only a fraction of officers use it, which again is due to the stigma or the culture of the office or the department or the profession as a whole. And then some structural barriers. Many officers face the fear of career consequences or licensing risks if they admit to mental health struggles, in fear that these struggles will come back to bite them or create challenges when attempting to continue their career. So to address these challenges, there is evidence-based approaches that I'm going to highlight a few. So like stated above, with the New York Lieutenant Joseph Banish Act, peer support groups, these have been known to reduce suicide risk by up to 35%. Something else that can be influential is mental health screenings and trainings, so early detection of any sort of mental health issues, training on how to deal with it or how to pick up on it between your fellow officers or within yourself, and then reaching out to the proper resources. Crisis intervention and follow-up, specifically after traumatic events, having some sort of system in place where officers have to have some sort of a sit-down or a check-in after they've been through a serious trauma to ensure that their mental health remains intact, and if it doesn't, to improve it. And then confidential access to counseling, again with the act above, anonymous helplines, and on-site programs often lower suicide rates, as well as takes away that fear of career repercussions. When looking at the course concepts, we've discussed a lot of things surrounding stigma as well as systematic reform. With stigma, like I stated above, more often than not, mental health is looked at as a weakness or something to be ashamed of, so that often prevents officers from speaking up or getting help, or people in general. With systematic reform, we've spoken a lot about how reforming the justice system can offer like resources rather than punishment, or proper procedures surrounding people with mental health. When it comes to the officers themselves, new policies and programs reducing stigma and creating that confidential counseling or crisis intervention, having those be mandated and reforming that process can support the officer's well-being. For the next slide, reducing suicides in law enforcement has wide-reaching benefits, so its overall impact improves officer health and retention. It builds community trust, since healthy officers provide safer, more empathetic policing, and it also reduces costs. Fewer retirements, fewer administrative expenses, preserved experience in the force. People won't be as retiring as soon due to trauma, or making as many mistakes on the job, or any sort of thing like that. Having a healthy officer is having a better community. To wrap it all up, officer suicide is a serious public safety and mental health issue. It requires multifaceted solutions such as peer support, training, screening, and legislative changes. My call to action is this. For law enforcement agencies, invest in peer support and confidential services for the officers. For policymakers, expand funding and replicate successful programs nationwide, not just in the larger departments with more money. And for communities, help reduce stigma and promote a culture where not only officers but everyone can seek help when they need it, but in this case, looking at officers to maintain a safe community. By protecting the mental health of officers, we're protecting the communities that they serve. Thank you.